Hello everyone, I'm Emily.
And I'm Hannah.
And we are the hosts of the I Don't Think So podcast. Each episode we present our different stories, theories, or mysteries and decide if we think it's believable or if we really don't think so.
Here at the I Don't Think So podcast, we are affiliated with Flurry Sports, and we present our theories on your favorite place to listen to podcasts every Wednesday. If you like what you hear, give us a like and share and follow us on our Twitter or X at I Don't Think So _EH. We also have an Instagram, and you can check us out on YouTube at IDTS Conspiracies.
Sorry, I'm ashamed to point at the camera with my big toe.
Getting thrown off. Forgot that Twitter was sold and got scared.
I frazzled. It's hard for me. Oh, welcome to June.
June.
Yuck. This is summer.
It is, which is crazy.
Oh, I love a good summer though. I've been mentally in summer all winter, so
Same.
Feels great to be in June. I'm not totally ready for 90-degree weather.
No. I am the kind of summer person where I'm like, wow, this is great. And then it hits 90 degrees and I'm like, I miss sweaters.
All of my wardrobe is pants and sweaters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've recognized that. But we're live, laugh, loving still.
Yeah. I mean, I've got shorts on now, so count it.
Count it. This is my first pair of the summer.
No, these legs have seen some sun. They're still pasty, but they've seen some sun. Whatever. I'm gonna be pale forever. It is what it is. But new month means new theme for the I Don't Think So podcast. And I was trying to figure out what we were going to do. And I really was like, you know what I love hearing about, learning about? Love is a weird word. Anyways, fascinates me, enthralls me. Cults.
Cults are very fascinating. I think the whole premise of cults is just interesting because so many people don't even realize that they're in it until they're exiting.
Yeah.
Or you're seeing it from the outside. And so it's kind of it's just definitely an interesting topic.
I think it's just such a conversation for people to be like, once you're out, you're like, if you've never been in, how do people get that deep? What are we doing? How could you do that? But when you're in it, you're in it,
Mm-hmm. It's just normal. And you feel so compulsed to have to follow their rules, quote unquote, or whatever. Or it just seems normal.
Yeah. When it's once you're in it to a certain degree, it's almost like any abusive relationship. It starts small and then it kind of builds and builds and builds. And suddenly you're so deep that you're doing things that had it been thrust upon you at the jump, you
would have been able to walk away. Yeah.
But now you're I've already put
sacrificed this. Yeah.
Time, energy, effort, so I'm going to stick around.
For sure.
So today, Hannah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about I think is one of the weirder cults. And we'll talk about it a little bit. I have a feeling you've heard of this cult before, but maybe don't know a ton about it.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Heaven's Gate?
I have heard about it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know a ton. You're right. I don't know a ton about it, but I've heard about it. So
you picked me.
She knows me. We've spent a week apart, and she came back and she's like, I know
what we need to talk about. Cults. So I'll tell you a little bit about the history and kind of what they maybe believe in, have believed in, and some of it's more deeper things. So a little bit of the history. The son of a Presbyterian minister and former soldier, Marshall Applewhite, began into kind of his biblical prophecy in the early 1970s.
Okay.
He would do this.
Sidetrack. Why do they all start in the 70s? Just drugs?
Drugs, and we hate the man.
Okay, sorry, continue.
I feel like that's what it's all about. It's war, and they're like,
Mhm.
is that Vietnam?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hate the man, fight the power, start a cult.
Yeah, love that.
That was the motto of the 70s. He would start this after being fired from the University of St. Thomas in Houston, Texas, over having an alleged relationship with one of his male students.
Also, side note, Texas.
Yeah.
Common theme.
Probably 70s.
Texas. Religious trauma. Abusing children. Boom, 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 boom.
And you're a cult leader.
I guess technically not children, but sexual assault issues.
Sexual-ish. Bad relationship, power dynamic. So
Continue.
Mr. Marshall would meet Bonnie Nettles. She's a 44-year-old married nurse with an interest in theosophy and biblical prophecy in March of 1972.
Nice.
The circumstances of their meeting kind of aren't really clear. According to Marshall's writings, the two met in a hospital where she worked while he was visiting a sick friend there. It would be rumored that it was a psych hospital or a mental hospital. Another account had Nettles substituting for a nurse working with premature babies in the nursery. So, kind of confusing. Applewhite later recalled that he felt like he had known Bonnie for a long time and concluded that they had met in a past life.
Soul families.
Soul family. She told him their meeting had been foretold by her extraterrestrials.
Bonnie.
Persuading him that he must have a divine assignment.
Is it her fault? Because this kind of sounds, the whole thing
sounds like a bad start.
sounds like you're giving him way too much attention and power.
Oh, shit. So Applewood and Nettles would kind of think about and ponder the life of St. Francis of Assisi. We're getting into Catholic.
Love the animals.
And
is that all I remember about
St. Francis of Assisi?
Didn't he like animals?
He did. Okay. He's always depicted with animals. I think he isn't supposed to be a nice guy.
Is he supposed to be this patron saint? Or whatever.
And lost things. Because when I lose anything, I get told to pray to St. Francis.
Huh.
Sometimes he helps, sometimes he lets me ponder.
I thought it was a different saint.
There might be more than one. You know, our Catholic religion did us really well.
Maybe I've been praying to the wrong guy, and that's why I'm fucked up.
Maybe I'm praying to Francis, and Francis is like, I just help with the animals, dog.
Or isn't there a St. Francis and a St. Francis of Assisi?
Fun.
Sorry, continue.
Anyway. So they would St. Francis of Assisi and works by Helena Blavatsky, R.D. Lying, and Richard Bach. Did I look up any of those people? No.
Meh.
You know them? Great. If you don't, Google them. They would keep a King James Bible and study passages from the New Testament, focusing on Christology, asceticism, and eschatology. Christ. I don't know.
Also, one other side too.
Eschatology is what I'm
Thank
going
you.
with.
The King James Bible with the Catholic saints. It's always the weirdos that, like, we're just gonna pick and choose from each of these denominations, and we're gonna make a cult.
I'm just gonna throw it together to that. Applewhite also read a lot of science fiction. This would include
Check.
This would include works by Robert Heinlein and Arthur Clarke. By June 19th, Applewood and Nettles' beliefs had completely solidified into what jumbled up frickin' mess they made.
Not on Juneteenth.
Not on Juneteenth. How dare you disrespect people? They concluded that they had been chosen to fulfill biblical prophecies and that they had been given higher level minds than other people. They wrote a pamphlet that described Jesus' reincarnation as a Texan and veiled, which was a very veiled reference to Applewood. Applewood believed he was the second Christ. as most cult leaders do.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. Furthermore, they concluded that there were 2 witnesses described in books of Revelation and occasionally visited churches and other spiritual groups to speak of their identities, often referring to themselves as the 2 or the UFO 2.
Jeez. Like, sometimes times you hear about these things
Mhm.
and you think, what idiot is
Would-
gonna be drinking this Kool-Aid? And then you hear about so many people that are so like vulnerable and
They're
they
just looking
fall
for
for this shit.
something.
And then you're like, this dude thinks he's Walker, Texas Ranger, second coming of Christ, with his spurs and his belt buckle. And you're like, no,
You can't believe this.
you can't do this.
Get out of here.
Oh, God. Okay.
So, Marshall, which is his first name, which I always think is fun, Marshall. Anyway,
Of course it is.
Marshall and Bonnie believed that they would be killed and then resurrected in view of others, transported into a spaceship.
Let's try.
So on their resurrection, they'd be into a spaceship.
Wow.
This event, which they would refer to as the demonstration, was to prove their claims. To their dismay, these ideas were poorly received by other religious groups.
Can't imagine why.
I know. The two would gain their first follower, Sharon Morgan, in May of 1974, abandoning her children to join them. Right? A month later, Sharon left the two and returned to her family. So, not long for life there. Nettles and Applewhite were arrested and charged with credit card fraud for using Morgan's cards despite the fact that she had consented to their use. The charges then would be later dropped. However, a routine check brought up that Applewood had stolen a rental car from St. Louis 9 months earlier, which he still had in his possession.
Can't do that.
Allegedly. Applewood then spent 6 months in jail, primarily in Missouri, and was released in early 1975, where he would again rejoin Bonnie.
Okay.
Eventually, Applewood and Nettles resolved to contact extraterrestrials, and they sought like-minded followers. They published advertisements for meetings where they recruited disciples, and they would call these people the crew. At the events, they purported to represent beings from another planet, which they would call the next level,
Ooh.
who sought participants for an experiment. They stated that those who agreed to take part in the experiment would be brought to a higher evolutionary level. In April of 1975, during a meeting with a metaphysical group of 80 people led by Clarence Klug and Joan Culper's Studio City, Los Angeles home, they shared their simultaneous revelation that they had been told they were the two witnesses in the Bible story of the end times. So not only is he Jesus, but he's one of the last two.
He's one of the last two, and he's getting, what do you call that? Sucked up.
The demonstration, as they called it, gets transported up, teleported
into a UFO.
According
Beamed up.
Beamed.
Ugh.
There you go. According to Benjamin Zeller, while accounts of the meeting differ, all described it as monumentous and agreed that Applewood and Nettles presented themselves as charismatic leaders with an important spiritual message, and around 25 individuals were inducted to join the group. Later in September of 1975, Applewood and Nettles preached at a motel in Oregon. Shocked, that's a choice. After selling all worldly possessions and saying start that sentence over. After selling all their worldly possessions and saying farewell to loved ones, around 20 more people vanished from the public eye and joined that group.
Okay.
Later that year, CBS Evening News, Walter Cronkite, there's no way I said that last name right, reported on the disappearances of, wow. Yeah. Somewhere in my tongue has decided revolt.
I am on vacation.
I refuse to do this. Walter reported on the disappearances in one of the first national reports on the developing religious group. Quote,
I feel like that's pretty fast.
Quote, a score of persons have disappeared. It's a mystery whether they've been taken on a so-called trip to eternity or simply been taken. So mind you, again, in the 70s, we're talking UFO crazes a little bit out there. And this group really jumped on that. In reality, Applewood and Nettles had arranged for the group to go underground. From that point, they would call themselves Doe and T. Spelled D-O-T-I. If that's what they referred to themselves.
Interesting.
They led nearly 100 members across the country, sleeping in tents, sleeping bags, and begging on the streets. They would evade detection by authorities, and media enabled the group to focus on Doe and T's doctrine of helping members of the crew achieve, quote, a higher evolutionary level above human, which they claim to have already reached. Applewood and Nettles would use a variety of aliases. Thank you. Over the years, notably Bo and Peep and Doe and T.
Okay.
So they would rarely go by Marshall and Bonnie. They'd go by Doe and T or Bo and Peep. The group also had several names prior to the adoption of the name Heaven's Gate. At the time Valley studied the group, it was known as Human Individual Metamorphosis, or called HIM. Weird. The group reinvented and renamed itself several times and had a lot of different recruitment methods. Applewhite believed he was directly related to Jesus, meaning he was an evolutionary kingdom level above human.
Wow.
His writings, which would combine aspects of millennialism, noticism, and science fiction, suggest he believed himself to be Jesus' successor and the, quote, present representative of Christ on earth. Doe and T taught early on that Doe's bodily vehicle, quote unquote, was inhabited by the same alien spirit that belonged to Jesus. Likewise, T, Bonnie, was presented as God the Father. We're really pulling from a lot of different
That's
directions.
an odd, so they're together.
They're together.
But also she's
God the Father and he's
Jesus. So she is also his dad.
But they're kind of doing the Holy Trinity thing here where they're like technically one, but different.
Gotcha.
The crew used numerous methods of recruitment as they toured the U.S., proclaiming the gospel of higher level metamorphosis, the deceit of humans by false god spirits, envelopment with sunlight for meditative healing, and the divinity of the UFO2.
That's a lot of things.
I know. They're great people. In April 1976, the group stopped recruiting and became reclusive and instituted a rigid set of behavioral guidelines, including banning sexual activity and the use of drugs.
Are they following this?
Absolutely not. There's no way. Applewhite and Nettles also solidified their temporal and religious authority over the group. Benjamin Zeller described the movement as having kind of transformed from a loosely organized social group to a centralized religious movement comparable to a roving monastery. Some sociologists agree that popular movement of alternative religions, experience and
individualism.
Yeah, found in collective spiritual experiences during that period kind of helped the growth of the new movement. Shialism, as it became later known, was a way for people to merge their diverse religious backgrounds and kind of become around like a generalized faith, which followers of new religious sects like Applewood's crew found to be kind of an appetizing alternative to like very traditional
like Catholicism and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When I feel like we see that a lot even now, where it's like we're picking and choosing these little bits of things and like putting them together to make our own beliefs because you're trying to push against like your traditional belief system, but then it's like you're still relying on some
of it, right?
Yeah.
You got to have a little bit there to like
pull people in, yeah. But then we're also believing aliens and like the sun to like recharge us.
Yeah. Many of the crew had very diverse backgrounds, most of them being described by researchers as having been like longtime truth seekers or like spiritual hippies. Who really were just trying to find themselves through faith or through spiritual means. However, not all of Applewhite's crew were hippies recruited from like alternative religious backgrounds. One such recruit early on was John Craig, who was a respected Republican and ranch owner who came close to winning the 1970 Colorado House of Representatives race. He would join the group in 1975. As numbers grew in its pre-internet days, the clan of UFO followers seemed to have a common need for communal belonging to an alternative path to like hired systems outside the constraints of like institutionalized faith. They identified themselves in the business name, Higher Source, and they used their website to kind of recruit followers and proselytize preach, whatever, in the beginning of the early 1990s. Rumors would begin spreading among the group the following years that Comet Halley housed a secret to their ultimate salvation and the ascent to the kingdom of heaven.
So she's just gotta come around.
She's just, So during this time, Heaven's Gate was being kind of researched a little bit by the media. Like I said, Jacques Valley's book, Messengers of Deception, would describe kind of the unusualness of this group. Mm-hmm. He often expressed that he was concerned about the people just because it seems odd in a lot of ways that they don't seem to make sense. Exactly. LA Weekly would write an article on the group known as the Total Overcomers in 1994. And some things happened within this group, which I'll talk about next. Trigger warning for this next bit. We are going to talk about suicide. So if that does disturb you, please skip ahead. So in October of 1996, the group would rent a large house, which they called the Monastery. It was a 9,200 square foot mansion located near 18341 Coalina Norte in Santa Fe.
Okay.
They paid $7,000 per month in cash. The same month, the group purchased alien abduction insurance.
Where do you buy that?
I would love to know.
Also, how do you file a claim after that?
I'd love to know. I really do. This insurance would cover up to 50 members and would pay out $1 million per person. The policy covered abduction, impregnation, or death by aliens.
Shit.
But it's stupid.
But if you're making $1 million, how
are you gonna prove it? I'm pregnant. It's an alien. What do you mean?
I mean,
prior to this is how shit. Prior to this, in June of 95, they had purchased land near Manzano, New Mexico, and began creating a compound out of rubber tires and concrete, but had just left it abruptly in April of 96.
Ugh.
Always good. On March 19th through the 20th in 1997, Marshall Applewood taped himself in Joe's Final Exit, speaking of mass suicide and, quote, the only way to evacuate this earth. After asserting that the Comet Halley was the sign that the group had been looking for, as well as speculation that a UFO may have been trailing the comet, Applewood and his 38 followers prepared for a ritual suicide, coinciding with the closest approach of the comet so that their souls could reach the next level before the closure of Heaven's Gate. Members believed that after their death, a UFO would take their souls to another level of existence above human, which Applewood described as being both physical and spiritual. Their preparations included each member videotaping a farewell message. To complete the suicide, members took a barbell mixed with applesauce or pudding, and then wash it down with vodka.
Ugh. Wash it down. Would you chase with the applesauce? This is where I'm out.
No kidding. I knew it. After ingesting this kind of applesauce pudding mix, they secured.
Also, did they mix the applesauce and pudding together?
No, I think they just ran out of one and had to switch over.
Some had to do snack pack. Some got applesauce. Got it.
That's okay. After ingesting the mix, they would then secure plastic bags around their head to induce asphyxiation.
This
is overkill. I don't know what to tell you.
It's not funny.
It's really sad.
It's really sad, but I feel like this is a lot of steps.
No kidding. Also, you're in it at this point, I guess. All 39 were dressed in identical black shirts and sweatpants, brand new black and white Nike Decade athletic shoes, and armband patches reading Heaven's Gate Away Team. Each member carried a $5 bill and 3 quarters in their pockets. According to former members, this was standard for members leaving the home for jobs and, quote, a humorous way to tell us all had left the planet permanently.
That's the humor?
The humor is that the $5 bill was for covering the cost of vagrancy laws, and the quarters were for calling home from payphones. Although another former member known as Sawyer stated that it was a reference to Mark Twain's story, which said $5.75 was, quote, the cost to ride the tail of a comet to heaven. No such passage from the writing of Twain is ever known to exist. So, after each one died, a living member would arrange the body by removing the plastic bag from the person's head, followed by posing the body so that it lay neatly in its own bed with the faces and torsos covered by a square purple cloth for privacy. In a 2020 interview with Harry Robinson, two members who were not in Ranchero Santa Fe when the suicides happened said that the identical clothing was a uniform that represented unity for the mass suicide, while the Nike shoes were chosen because the group, quote, got a good deal on the shoes. Applewood was also a fan of Nike, and, quote, therefore, everyone was expected to wear and like Nike within the group. God. Heaven's Gate also had a saying, just do it, echoing Nike's slogan, and pronounced do as dough to reflect Applewood's nickname. So they would say, just dough it.
This guy sucks.
Yeah. So all 39 adherents, 21 women and 18 men believed to be the age of 26 and 72, are believed to have died in 3 groups of days. The remaining participants cleaned up after each of the group's deaths. The suicides occurred in groups of 15, 15, and 9, which was approximately March 22nd and March 26th. Among the dead was Thomas Nicholas, brother of actress Michelle Nicholas, who's best known as her role Uhura in the original television series Star Trek.
Never seen it.
Peter Applewhite was the third to last member to die. 2 people named after him were the only ones found with bags over their head and not having purple cloths covering their top hats. So before the last suicide, similar sets of packages were sent to numerous Heaven Gates affiliated or formerly affiliated officials, and at least one media outlet, the BBC department responsible for Louis Theroux's Weird Weekends, which Heaven Gate had earlier declined participation on. Among the list of recipients was Rio D'Angelo. The package D'Angelo received on the evening of March 25th. The other packages sent had contained 2 VHS tapes, one with Joe's final exit, and the other with farewell messages of group followers. It also contained a letter stating that, among other things, quote, we have exited our vehicles just as we entered them. D'Angelo informed his boss of the content of the packages and then received a ride from him to Los Angeles to Heaven's Gate home in Ranchero Santa Fe so he could verify the letter. D'Angelo found the back door potentially unlocked to allow access and used the video camera to record what he found. So after leaving the house, D'Angelo's boss who waited outside encouraged him to call the cops. The San Diego Sheriff's Department received an anonymous tip through the 911 system on March 26th, suggesting to, quote, check on the welfare of residents, end quote. Days after the suicide, the caller was revealed to be D'Angelo. So, a little bit of the aftermath. All bodies were then eventually cremated. That for you. The aftermath. Heaven's Gate's deaths were widely publicized in the media as an example of a mass suicide. When the news broke of its relation to Comet Halley, the co-discoverer of the comet, Alan Hale, was drawn into the story. Hale's phone number never stopped ringing the entire day. He chose not to respond until he spoke the next day at a press conference. After researching the events of the incident, he would then speak to Second World Skeptics Congress in Heidelberg, Germany. He basically was just very distraught over the entire thing.
Yeah.
News of the 39 deaths in Ranchero Santa Fe motivated the copycat suicide of a 58-year-old man living in California. The man left a note dating March 27th, which said, I'm going on the spaceship with Hale Bopp to be with those who have gone before me, and imitated some of the details of like the Heaven's Gate suicide that had been reported. The man was found dead by a friend on March 31st. He probably wasn't connected. At least 3 former members of Heaven's Gates died by suicide in the months following the mass suicide. And on May 6, 1997, Wayne Cook and Chuck Humphrey, known as Rkody, R-K-K-O-D-Y, within the group, attempted suicide in a hotel in a manner similar to that used by the group. Cook died, but Humphrey survived, having been saved by responding authorities.
Well,
James Hickley Jr. would die of suicide by self-inflicted gunshot on May 11th. In February 98, Humphrey did ultimately kill himself in Arizona. He was found carrying a $5 bill and 4 quarters in his pocket. Next to him, a note read, "Do not provide."
wow.
So, although most people consider the event a mass suicide, sociologist and former member of the cult, Janja, I apologize, Anja? Anha? I'm so sorry. Has referred to the event as, quote, murder. UCLA psychiatrist Louis West described the dead members as victims of a hope, and there was villainy here. 2 former members, Mark and Sarah King of Phoenix, Arizona, operating as the Tella Foundation, are believed to maintain the group's website to this day. As of 2017, there's not really been any evidence of growth. As far as the mass suicide of the group kind of fell into obscurity, relying mainly on their website for recruitment now.
Well, I wonder if we'll ever see something similar to this then when Haley's Comet comes back.
I'm pretty sure it's Haley's Comet, Hale.
Yeah, it's Haley's Comet. Or Halley's. Technically, he's British.
Yeah, and it's, if you like read the story itself, they call it like Halley Bop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I remember, I think it's coming in like, it's every 76 years. So it's like 2050 something, I think. Well, they came in, what, 2040? It came in 1976, you said?
Mhm.
So.
Nope, that's wrong. 96.
1996?
Yep.
Oh, must be later then. I think it comes every 76 years.
Some of the beliefs of them, the group had initially been told they would be biologically and chemically transformed into extraterrestrial beings and would be transported aboard a spaceship, which would come to Earth and then take them to heaven, referred to as the next level. But Bonnie, you notice I didn't really talk about her at the end. She died of cancer in 1985, and the group's like kind of doctrine was confounded because she was allegedly chosen by the next level to be a messenger to Earth, yet her body had died instead of moving physically to outer space. So they would then revise their belief system as you do.
Right.
Saying that like your consciousness is what pulled up, not your body. Your body's the vehicle.
Sure.
The group declared that they were originally against suicide, as they find suicide in their own context to mean born against the next level. Obviously, you would see that changed near the end there.
Right.
Would adopt names, kind of consisting of 3 letters followed by a suffix, body, OY, signify themselves as children of the next level. This would be mentioned in Joe's final exit. They believe that to be eligible for membership to the next level, humans would have to shed every attachment to the planet, and so that they had to give up all their human characteristics, such as their family, friends, gender, sexuality, individually, jobs, money, and possessions. The Tella, which is the evolutionary level above human, was a physical, corporal place. So they're really a great time. Members of Heaven's Gate believe that evil space aliens called Luciferians falsely represented themselves to Earthlings as God and conspired to keep humans from developing, which I just love. All of these basic beliefs of the group stayed generally consistent over the years, but like they were kind of modified as time went on, just to kind of try and keep up with things as they changed. So, techniques to enter the next level: 1, physical pickup onto a Tella spacecraft and then transfer to the next level upon that craft or a UFO.
Okay.
You could have a natural death, accidental death, or death from random violence.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Outside persecution that leads to death, so such as the death penalty. You can get there.
So pretty much like any mode of death besides turning away from it.
Correct. And then near the end, they would add the willful exit from the body in a dignified manner.
By suffocating yourself.
Absolutely. Animals were said to have souls, and a soul in an animal could also enter the next level.
Nice.
If it became a servant of humans, such as a guide dog.
Oh.
So that's the Heaven's Gate cult. Aren't they fun?
They're an interesting group, you know? Like, I guess I didn't realize that it was kind of ended as like a mass suicide.
Mm-hmm.
But I would be interested to see, because you said like they still maintain their website and stuff like that.
They do. It's called Tela, T-E-L-A-H.
Like, if we'll see like a rise in it again as Haley's Comet comes back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was one
Because
of
we got a
those-
lot of crazies still here today.
Oh, 100%. Well, I just think it was such an interesting intersection of wild,
yes.
like very religious with a lot of like ties to Catholicism, which is a very rigid religion, to then also include like aliens and UFOs and spacecraft. And I'm like, and it wasn't one of those
and like
cults-
some like mindfulness, like healing of like whatever. It's just a like,
but like not one of those like free form religions as well as like we see a lot of times in the 70s where it's like screw who you want because sexuality is power. It's very rigid in the same sense that like Catholicism is. So I just thought it was such a wild.
that is interesting.
There is a documentary series, I believe it's on Netflix, about Heaven's Gate cult.
Okay.
So if you ever do want to check into it, you can always look at it there.
Interesting. That's a good like step into our month of June.
Yeah. Also, isn't it funny that now, like in the brand old year of 2024, NASA's been like, yeah, aliens do exist. So I can't imagine some people back in the 70s were like, I knew it.
No kidding. Yeah, and when I just to like side tangent off of that, I also love that when they started like coming out with like aliens exist, people are like, the world is crashing and burning so much that we're like, yeah,
Okay.
like no one's surprised.
No one's surprised. And honestly, I don't have the bandwidth to care about something unless they're gonna like buy me a house.
No kidding. And on top of that, like, I think there's with the amount of research and evidence that we have now of like how large our universe is,
Yeah.
you would be like, I think, simple-minded to think that there wasn't other life out there.
If you believe like the universe is infinitely big and is continuing to grow with thousands upon millions of different suns and universes and planets, I think it's very minded if you really like life would not exist on literally any other planet. Right. When they've like proven that like was life on Mars at some point.
Right. And I think it's fair to say like maybe you don't see
maybe
other
out there
and other intelligent life similar to humans in our galaxy, even in our galaxy. It's hard to say. Like, I would at least take that as an argument closer than like there's no such thing as aliens.
Yeah,
right.
Like maybe you to believe that you could have done it. No, I don't have to believe that. But you to be like, there's no way life of any kind, shape, form exists. Also, hear a fun fact I found out today, and I was like blown. Plants like talk and emit like noise. It's just at such a high frequency that humans can't hear, but like cats and dogs can. And when they're stressed, they like release a high pitched squeal. And like when they're happy, like more quiet. And I'm like, okay, that's what I can't bite some plants.
He's like, chill out.
Shut up.
I just think about like how many noises that we can't hear. Well, first of all, deaf. But second of all, like, because you'll say like, oh, animals can hear different types of things, whatever, and then it freaks me out, and I'm like, what are you staring at? But maybe my cat's just staring at my plants.
Maybe she's like, that one needs to get watered. It's been screaming.
Wow, that's interesting.
Sorry, side tangent of life, but like that's what I mean. Like there could be just like bacteria on another planet, and that counts.
100%. Yeah, that's why I say like intelligent life similar to humans.
I think there is because I just think the world.
Oh, I 100% think there is in the universe. I don't know if it's necessarily in our galaxy.
I have no idea. I doubt it, but I'm not. Like if someone said yes, I'd be like, okay.
Oh, 100%. I just think like because of the conditions, like humans are very fragile beings.
Yeah, I don't think they. I think
then I think it would
is
be
not a-
hard to live on other.
Because our galaxy. No, I'm thinking just our solar.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like
Our
just
solar system.
Just in our solar
Oh
system.
God, I don't think there's anything in our solar system.
Yeah. But like
In the Milky Way, I fucking know.
probably in the Milky Way. Because we're in like just one little tiny spiral of the entire Milky Way galaxy.
I know.
So probably are in our galaxy. I mean, yeah, I guess mean more in our solar system.
In our solar, I don't think there's bitches living on Jupiter.
No bitches.
No.
Venus? Now you
I bet you there's not a lot of us.
Yeah.
Boys go to Jupiter.
Oh, well, that was fun. Well, as we continue throughout the month of June, if you have any suggestions of any cults you'd like us to talk about, definitely let us know. If you like what you hear, definitely follow our show, like us on our socials, and follow us there at _EH, or listen to us on YouTube at IDTS Conspiracies.
Absolutely. But we will check you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.